So North-South Connection, JT and Ryan here, your favorites from the old WrestleMania Countdown series. Hopefully you're excited for Survivor Series coming up this Saturday. It's the annual Thanksgiving tradition. A couple days after Thanksgiving, but whatever, close enough. And honestly, really kicks off the season for WrestleMania too. Like you always think, oh, Rumble like really starts that corridor, but Survivor Series often has like a tease or some kind of return. And really, for all intents and purposes, is really the beginning officially of WrestleMania season. Ryan, you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. I think it's the culmination of the year and the start of the season for WrestleMania, and it's like kind of a real sweet spot in the WWE history wise. Pivotal for sure.
Agreed. And of course, you can hopefully, if you're watching us live, welcome. You can add comments on YouTube or on Facebook, and they should post here for us to share. Our buddy Ish is in here commenting away as always. Our friend from the Wrestling Warzone Patreon, longtime fan of the place to be, and the Warzone, et cetera, et cetera. So good to have Ish here, and good to have you all here. And of course, if you're watching this after the fact or listening, thank you as well. Be sure to subscribe while you're here. We are on TikTok, we're on Facebook, and here on YouTube, North-South Connection. We're doing Survivor Series previews every day. Ryan and a rotation of guests are previewing every single match. We'll have a post-game show as well this weekend, so sure, check that out. And then we'll have some of the cool content. And once we get to WrestleMania season, we'll be up and running hardcore as well. So you can check out all of our podcasts. We're also simulcasting a lot of this audio on all podcast applications under North-South Connection, as well as the video here. So, Ryan, you want to talk about what our plan is here?
All right, Justin. So we have picked 25 Survivor Series moments in the history of the WWE/F to kind of go over and rank in importance or what it meant to us, company history, so on and so forth. And we'll rank them against each other. I randomized them. So they're not in chronological order. You see the little WWE logo on the side to give you a little preview of what's coming up next, what we talk about. But are you ready to go, Justin? I think we start away with the debut of the 1987 Survivor Series match.
Agreed. And you can see our buddy OCP Gaming. Stay tuned, because he said if the gobbledygooker is not on the list, he's going to riot. But stay tuned. You never know what's going to come. Yeah, we're going to start with the 1987, the debut. This felt like a moment in time because it starts the whole show. So if you're going to do a list and a countdown of moments of Survivor Series, you need to have the inaugural Survivor Series on there. And they nailed it. Like, I think it's a great show. It holds up well. It's got all the stars. I always liked how they put the little compartments of the divisions and all the different matches. Like you have the IC division, the women's, the tag, and then the main eventers. And the main event's a big deal. It's like Hogan and Andre's first time in the ring together since WrestleMania 3. Andre survives, which is awesome. So I think this is going to be like a sneaky high one. It's kind of like when we do those lists and it's like, where does WrestleMania 1 rank, right? It's like maybe not the best show, but it means so much, whereas this is a great show and I think it means something. So I think for now, like, it's going to be kind of near the top for me.
Well, right now it's number one for sure, Justin, right? But it, like we talked about when we started, it was a pivot point, right? It was the end of 87 where they had the biggest match in company's history, the biggest match in wrestling history at WrestleMania 3 with Hulk and Andre. And then you had the middle here, which led to the tournament at WrestleMania 4. So it is a pivotal part. And I think it should be considered on the second tier, right? When you think about it, you're like, oh, it means a lot, but you don't necessarily think about it as a actual moment. So right. My gut tells me 12 to 8-ish, right?
Yeah, I think that's right. I was going to say 10. I think the moment for me, if you had to pinpoint a moment, is Gorilla and Jesse, the pilgrim hat, like welcoming us into the, Thanksgiving night tradition now, the new tradition, just kind of that kickoff. And of course, up against Starrcade. Our buddy OCP asking, is this the hottest the crowd's ever been, like the whole night? I would agree. It's up there for sure. There's some other shows as well. Our buddy Steve Riddle Me This says it's an underrated show. Every match is awesome. I agree with all these points for sure. If you haven't watched it in a while, throw this one on for Thanksgiving Eve or something, because it's such an easy watch. It's a smooth watch across the board. So, obviously we're going to move these as we go. For now, it's our top one. But let's see how it shakes out.
Yeah, so the next one we have here is 2016. And you want to talk about a moment, it is Goldberg defeating Brock Lesnar in a minute and 46 seconds, if that.
Yeah, it's something like that. I mean,
It's
it's
crazy. You got the video game, you got Goldberg on the cover, and then you have Brock coming out of the WrestleMania 30 match, and he seems unstoppable. And he's kind of on a hot streak ever since then, 2 years previous. And Goldberg just pins him, catches him, and the crowd fucking is in awe, really. It's
they
quite
never done anything like that. Like that. That's why it was like it's one of those things that you always say, like, oh, they should do a squash on a main event. And the closest they had probably come was like Cena and Brock at SummerSlam 14, where he kicks the shit out of him. But even that's like what, 12 to 15 minutes or somewhere in there, right? It's a regular match. They had never really done this like squash, like I don't know, I don't want to say squash, more of like an MMA style. He caught him with a knockout blow.
He got caught. Yeah. He was arrogant, he was cocky, and he got caught. It's all what it really should have been what Mike Tyson and Jake Paul was.
Yeah, I like this a lot. I remember arguing that night. Like it might have been one of the last times I argued wrestling on the internet before I just gave up on doing it. But it's like, oh, you know, this was sold and hyped as such a big match and this and that. But I was like, but it was so different and it's memorable. And like it started, you know, with the build to their rematch of Mania, which also was a great match in its own right. And that one feels like, you know, it's 5 times as long as this. It's still under 6 minutes. But that's like that's an awesome. I love that match too. So this is a great 2-match series to me. It's below, I think it's below 87. But it's a really cool moment. And like you said, it's like a big deal for, you know, I think it sets up Goldberg as like a legitimate player because this is his first match, right? Had he wrestled in WWE?
Yeah,
since obviously it was 03 or whatever, 04. So.
Since 04, WrestleMania 20. And with that being said, against Brock, it was such an unknown and it was such a wow moment. So yeah, it definitely warrants it. I just probably late teens, probably I would say.
Yeah, we'll have to see as we go where it ends up.
All right, I think this is the first time we perhaps maybe move the cursor here on our little gimmick on the screen, and that is 1996, Rocky Maivaia's debut. It's very important, Justin, right? The puffy hair, the goofy silhouette, the what is this? But what this is charisma, but like uncontrolled in a way, right? So it's a lot of moving parts. It's pretty much Flex Cavana under a new name. It's something. I don't know how it's important, but I don't know how like it's not top tier importance, right? But it's memorable for sure.
Yeah, it's I think at the moment you knew he was potentially gonna be a big deal. The way they were hyping him and building him up, like they were really talking the blue chipper, the 3rd generation superstar, doing the walking on the beach with Kevin Kelly. Like there was a lot behind it, and they really play it up even that night. He ends up being the survivor of the match as well. But
he's so fucking goofy. Think 2 years later, bro.
Yeah, and I don't think we had any clue what he was going to be, and we didn't know he was going to be the biggest crossover star in wrestling history. It's like, I mean, who would have thought? And the board,
top 5 famous in the world,
board director, whatever the hell he is now. Who would have thought? So, yeah, I think.
Is it a bigger moment than Goldberg and The Rock? Goldberg and Brock?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, and what about the debut? Is it more important than the debut?
I think so.
The debut is going to mean more to you than me, so I don't want to like discount it yet. But
listen,
we're like on the same tier, in my opinion.
He's one of the bottom of this list, right? That we know is going to be important.
Yeah,
I don't know how this can't be close to that. You know what I mean? Like,
all right, I'm going to move it up. I'm going to move it up to
top 1 right now. No, I think it's above 87.
I'm good with that. That's what my gut's telling me, so I'm totally fine with that too.
It's almost like a cheat to have 87 in a way, because it's like, how can any of these moments be bigger than if the event doesn't debut, none of them are bigger. So I think we should tweak that.
I don't know how to feel about 87 yet, honestly. So yeah.
I think we should tweak that to the moment being that Gorilla and Jesse intro. Like that's the moment, is like them, the peanut butter pie, like that whole like setting the stage for the Thanksgiving tradition of the WWF that didn't exist before. So, because I think the more I'm talking about it, like just the show we can't do any of these moments if the show doesn't debut. That would de facto make it number 1, which I don't think is right. So, yeah, I think we just go with like the aesthetic of a Thanksgiving night show for 80. So that's what 87 represents.
Yeah, for sure. And like we said earlier, we can talk about as we kind of move on. We don't have to stop talking about 87. We're going to compare it to each thing as we go. All right, so let's compare it to 2003. It is Team Eric Bischoff versus Team Stone Cold Steve Austin. Now, Justin, I am watching 2003 currently, and I am in the week before this. So I feel the build for this, but I haven't watched this in fucking years. But the build is really strong. Bischoff is a total dickhead heel, and Austin is kind of rallying the troops 2 years later, but like for his side, not the invasion side, right? So I don't know. It feels pretty big and important leading into it. I know it's a great match. I know Michaels has a gusher, but I don't have the connection to it right now because I haven't cut in there on my watch. So give me your love on this match.
Yeah, I think historically it's not going to mean much, but I think in the moment it was pretty cool. And shout out to the Backbone Wrestling Podcast Network and Ruthless Aggressive, formerly of the NoSo, our buddy Jake. They're moving their way through 03, so they're going to be getting to this as well soon. I think it meant something in a few ways, right? Like I think 03 was a tough year in many regards. Like the boom was clearly over. Yeah. As a wrestling fan, you're like, okay, it's kind of getting to be uncool again. A lot of the top stars are gone.
But so much of that attitude was lingering, and it was bad attitude.
Yeah, and it felt like the matches were starting to lack. So when this delivered, we also hadn't had like a classic Survivor Series match in a while. Like they had kind of abandoned the gimmick a bit. Yeah, there's some in like 99 and 2000.
The invasion one's pretty big, as we'll get to in a little bit.
Yeah,
but
that was more the invasion storyline than like a classic Survivor Series 5-on-5 team, like two teams put together for a purpose. So it was like a cool throwback. And Michaels hitting that gusher and having that classic performance was like, to me, this was always the chamber was like, okay, Sean can still go. Yep. And then it was like in the summer, he starts touring again. So he's like, oh, he's full time again. Mm-hmm. But really this match was like, okay, Shawn Michaels is still fucking Shawn Michaels. And like from here, he just takes off. Like into 04, he has great stuff. And then 05, 06. So whatever. This is kind of restarts Shawn as Shawn. It's also Orton, the beginning of him like being a sole survivor. That becomes a theme over the next few Survivor Series. It ends the Austin Bischoff storyline. Austin gets screwed, gets fired. He comes back as a sheriff like a few weeks later. That's why I say historically it doesn't mean much.
Yeah, he's lingering at WrestleMania. He's the sheriff and whatever at WrestleMania.
Yeah, but they make a big freaking deal about it that night when they lose because they're like, oh, this is Austin has to retire. He has to leave. They do a big farewell thing. So in the moment, it really felt like this was it. So this is probably like high teens into low 20s for me, but it's a real memorable thing.
It real makes a good point. It's a top 3 or 5 Survivor Series match, right? Yeah. And he's not wrong there. Compare it to Goldberg shocking Brock Lesnar. I think it's like probably the same tier, but is it higher?
I think it's more memorable.
Oof.
But I'm gonna me, like anything in those mid 2010s is like the numbers, the eyes were low. And I love that segment. Like I'm not shitting on it, but
yeah. We love all of these, right? They're all fucking awesome in a way, right? Yeah. But just because of the quality of the match and the anticipation that I feel right now to kind of get to it, I wish I could have watched it before this. I think the Austin Bischoff stuff should be higher than the Goldberg stuff.
I think this is a greater match, plus Shawn, plus Austin's final moment in the moment, or in evolution. You could argue that's bigger than anything Goldberg Brock. Like that really, Orton had already been rising throughout 03, but this was like his real first. I think he beat Shawn on pay-per-view in the summer or something, but this was like also his first, like, because then the next month he beats RVD for the IC title and starts his long reign. So yeah.
All right, and then now this versus the debut match.
No, debut and Rocky are higher.
Yeah, they're bigger, they're more meaningful, but this is probably the better matches out of all of them. I don't know. We can get to it as we go. I feel good about the top 4 as we start. All right, the next one.
He's heading out for the night, but he'll be watching us afterwards. So shout out. We love you, Ish. Thanks.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so we have 1991. Undertaker defeats Hulk Hogan for the WWF title. Shout out to Bennett and Rollins. They just did this pay-per-view on the 24-inch podcast. And they did a good job of kind of going over it and being like, it's a pretty bad golden era pay-per-view, but this moment is more memorable. This is an all-time poster, by the way. Like this poster for
Oh
this
yeah.
Survivor Series is fucking awesome. And then this is like the culmination of like you're on the edge of 92, which is one of the better years in the company. And then you have all the stuff leading into that. It's just a little bit disappointing, but it is shocking that The Undertaker, after debuting a year before, wins the world title here at Survivor Series. Is it over? Is it bigger than the Goldberg and Brock thing? Just because the importance of it and whatnot.
Yeah, I think Undertaker's
It's set
first
up for
world.
Rumble 92, mind you, by the way.
Yeah, so set up for 92. They hyped the shit out of Tuesday in Texas. So that was like a big deal going to that first ever weeknight pay-per-view deal. That this whole thing's like an infomercial, and this is the draw match. Taker's first world title, Ric Flair involvement, screwing Hogan, that pushes like what was likely supposed to be the Mania main event, Hogan and Flair. Yes, it sets up the vacating of the title at Tuesday in Texas. It's a big deal. I think it's a really big deal because also you always think about Angle, Diesel, other guys that won the belt within a year, but you kind of forget Taker. This is the 1 year anniversary of his debut too, wins the world title on his rocket push. So I would have this higher than Austin Bischoff. I'd have it higher than Goldberg Brock.
How about the debut?
Yeah, I think so.
And then Rocky Maivia?
No,
The Rock.
no.
I don't think so either. All right. Well, I'm sure we'll get to it as we get thicker with it. But the next one we have is 1994. Speaking of winning the title, Bob Backlund wins the WWF title, Justin. Yeah. As you can see right there, look at him in his glory right there. And as you said with your hands, the oh my God moment. This is a moment. This is a shocking moment. It's a transitional moment because he would go on to drop it, 3 days later at MSG to Diesel. So it's important, but it really is the downturn of like that. We're officially going to the new gen era with Diesel, right? Because Brett's a lingering guy from the Federation era. And Jesus, Backlund's from his dad's era, right? But that transitions into Goldberg is like now we're totally in a new era.
It's a memorable moment. It's a cool
memorable moment, as they all are.
First world title since '78 or whatever. So that's cool. He had snapped and turned heel over the winter and over the summer, I mean. And like you didn't think it was going to lead to this with him actually beating Brett. It's a pretty crazy moment in retrospect. You get the cool Owen, crying. It's like a whole thing on the floor. He throws it, gets him to throw in the towel. So again, this to me is like, it's cool. It's a fun moment. Doesn't mean much long term.
Is it the last thing we have so far?
Yeah, it's at the bottom. But I do think it's a memorable Survivor Series moment. So I do think it belongs in the mix.
Yeah, and speaking of this is weird how this randomized it, right? Because speaking of transitions, we have that transition here in 2015 with Sheamus cashing in on Roman Reigns with the help of Triple H lingering or whatever. So it's kind of similar where they use this moment of the Survivor Series to spark a guy after they gave him the belt, but then they took it away to kind of heat him up and give him a bitter moment. This is a weird transition for the WWF. They're very injured at this time period, and they don't really know what's going on. But they use this to kind of spark interest, right? They had interest coming in because don't forget they had this mini tournament, right?
Yeah.
Because who was the champion?
Rollins
got hurt.
Yeah, Rollins blew his knee out. So they put the title up. You end with Reigns and Ambrose. And they had spent the whole year rehabbing Reigns. Him and Ambrose were a team. They kind of got him over again. I disagreed with this in the moment, and when Marcus and I rewatched the season for Dirty War, I stuck by that. Like I think they should just give it to Reigns. I think they had actually accomplished.
You're right. Yeah.
Well, they accomplished what they were trying to do. It was like get this freaking guy over. They finally get him over. He wins the tournament, and then they screw him immediately. It's like, what are we doing? And then he ends up winning it back at WrestleMania from Hunter, who wins it in the Rumble because they ended up he wins it back and gets stripped again, right? Because then they put it up for grabs, or no, does he defend it in the Rumble?
He wins it on Raw, and then he must defend it in the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, he loses the TLC match to Sheamus. And So yeah, the cash-in's cool. And this was like Sheamus's kind of reboot. Like he, I think now you look back and he's like a top worker. Like he's rates high on everyone's list. He's awesome. But I think at this point he hadn't really gotten there yet. He was still kind of Triple H's gym buddy. Kind of like
Doesn't have the respect of the ardent fans, right? He's still, like you said, Triple H's gym buddy. Yeah.
Yeah, he was like good, but not like he is, looked at now. So it's kind of
He's
like
not appreciated.
it was kind of a groan when he won. And again, even the TLC match is kind of whatever. It's more memorable for Reigns kicking the shit out of Hunter and spearing Stephanie and all that when he snaps and Vince or whatever. Remember he goes crazy, ballistic on them all. But yeah, I just think I think Reigns winning this and not having this blip with Sheamus would have been much more beneficial to Reigns long term. So to me, this is the bottom one.
I was going to say, I think Becky's of this and way more important. I think this might be the bottom of the barrel right here.
Yeah.
All right, not this right here. This is I have very fond memories of this. This is Cena and The Rock teaming against R-Truth and The Miz at 2011. First thing, when I think of this pay-per-view, first thing I think of is Zack Ryder, how over he was. He's even getting chance after this when Cena and The Rock are looking at each other post-match. But this was a big deal at the time, Justin. This is The Rock's first match since WrestleMania 20 in the same building, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and his first appearance he had been in 05 and then he was gone, right? Because he had like the thing where Vince, the contract lapsed and all that shit. And I don't think he had been on really since 05.
04, yeah, with the coach May 1st or whatever, because it's his birthday. I don't know how I remember that, but yeah, I'm a fucking loser. But yes, this is a big deal, but it's important too, because WrestleMania 28 was pretty big. It was box office. It was one of the biggest pay-per-views they've done in company history, right? So
yeah. And it's a cool deal for like Miz and Truth as well. Like they had worked hard. They had that really cool heel turn. And then
Riddle
they put them out there and they go, they give him like this really big MSG moment.
All right. So Justin, if you can see the ticker here, I'm going to grab this box. Right. And then I want you to tell me when to stop. If he didn't die, he might have died. We're live, folks.
We're here.
All right. So right now, I have this. Do you think it warrants being over Team Austin and Bischoff?
Yes.
Austin and Bischoff's a better match, but this felt big, and this was a big moment. How about the debut? Again, we don't know how to weigh the debut.
I'm counting it as that moment that you see in all the packages, Gorilla and Jesse with the Pilgrim hat. So I'm going to say higher than that because it's the two of the biggest stars of wrestling history teaming up, in MSG, and it starts the build to Mania, which we already knew the match was happening. So it's more like hey, here's what The Rock's about. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like their Saturday night's main event for WrestleMania in a way.
Yeah. Right? It's like the Hogan Warrior versus, Perfect and Genius or whatever the hell,
Yeah. Shout out Steve Bennett. We just did that one. Second Steve Bennett reference in 10 minutes. Hogan, Austin. I mean, Hogan and Undertaker. I feel
it's above that.
Yeah.
No, right. Well, no, maybe not, because Taker was first title. All right, let's leave it below that for now.
We'll leave it here. Can adjust. That's one we're gonna kind of get into. All right, this next one here, Justin, is extremely fun in my opinion. It is Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair. The women showed out in this match 100%. This is a sneaky good Survivor Series. You had Brian and Brock in here as well. Man, this is a fucking kick-ass match. It's like this was a pivot because the women is at their starting to boil and they're kind of at their peak right now. Becky breaks her nose. This is supposed to be Becky and Ronda, but they're like, fuck, what are we going to do? We still need the marquee. Let's throw Charlotte in there. Charlotte's at her peak. She makes this work, and they don't want to give away the finish, right? This is a DQ, but they wanted
to plan for Mania because they weren't planning Becky to be the main event of Mania. This is meant to be the Mania main event.
So they didn't want to give it away, and they wanted to give a little prelude to what that would be in 5 months, right? And man, this is fucking awesome. This is at least 4 stars with a DQ finish. Is impressive. I just don't know what it means, right? I don't know how it's weighed. This is the peak of Ronda, obviously. She doesn't get the hate yet she kind of she's like adored here.
No, yeah, she
Coming
just.
out of this
I mean, her first
performance.
match was 6 months before this or whatever at Mania,
Yeah.
and it was a awesome match. And this is great. Yeah, the beatdown is vicious. Like she really kicks the shit out of her. As Jenny said, no doubt there. I fucking love this match. It's a big Charlotte mark. Riddle's still crazy. We never got round to Becky, which is true. Yeah, this. I think this to
It's
me is in that.
comparable.
Well, it's in that Goldberg Brock.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to
Austin
say.
Bischoff bucket.
But I
I'd
would
probably have it above Goldberg Brock because it did lead to a Mania main event.
Is it a better match? What's a better match? Ronda Charlotte or Team Austin versus Team Bischoff?
I think it's below Austin Bischoff only because this is a Survivor Series list, and that's a Survivor Series classic style match.
But yeah, this is a Raw versus SmackDown match, and Becky is your champion on SmackDown. Ronda is your champion on Raw, but Becky broke her nose, so Charlotte is the fill-in. So it's champion versus champion. Like this era of the Survivor Series is like an NBA All-Star game, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't really mean much, but it's just like a highlight of kind of where the brands are.
Right.
I'm good keeping it as is for now. That might be when we
the Austin match being a Survivor match should rank higher, and I think just the stakes felt a little bit more in the match.
Okay,
for sure.
All right, and speaking of stakes, we had a lot of them here, brother.
You can just put it number one right now. I mean, for now,
yes.
I think it'll obviously get passed, but it's the greatest tournament in wrestling history. Match quality doesn't matter. It's Vince Russo's absolute peak in wrestling.
Absolutely.
It's a wonderfully told 3-hour story that starts with and the seeds were sown, a couple months earlier where Rock
is the ref. Sneaky,
well, yeah,
right?
So many things, right? But where Rock started to turn face a little bit in the fall, just to get him here as being like, oh, we're face Rocky, we love him now. And then boom, by the end of the night, he's the most hated guy in the company with Vince. Foley becomes one of the most beloved faces of all time across this night. You get Dwayne Gill, which is funny. You get Shane as the ref with the big double birds to Austin. You get the little things like, them accidentally throwing the nightstick to Rock against Boss Man. There's so many little twists and turns along the way. You get Taker and Kane in there. Yeah. Oh, it's perfect. I mean, it's perfectly executed, perfectly booked.
It's probably going to be top 5 for us. No, I think for sure.
You get the callback to the year before it was passe to do it. Like it was kind of like
that looks like shit in historically.
Yeah, but in the moment it had him in, it was like the first time they'd done it. And it was like Vince in Montreal started the Mr. McMahon character for all intents and purposes. And this was like the evolution of it. And he does the same freaking thing to Foley that he did to Brett,
No doubt.
And you get Worcester, 4 weeks later, which is an iconic moment. So
yeah, and they've switched the belt fucking 4 times, legit, right? Halftime heat, fucking back on Raw. It's insane. By
the way, if you're listening on Podbean, thank you, but you should watch on YouTube, even if you're not watching us live, because we have comments from the Peanut Guy. I'm trying to read some, but we're throwing them up as we're going live here. So Pratt wants Brett's tights at 96. But be sure if you watch along, you can see additional comments from viewers.
Yeah, actually, the comments have been fantastic. Keep up, guys. Thank you. It really adds to it. And we're going to want the comments when we need to break ties. So buckle up. All right. 95, Brett and Diesel post-match. Brett goes to the table. Justin, I'm going to lean on you on this one.
It's actually during the match. It's not post-match.
During the match.
I put it on because it's the first big table spot in WWE history. Like you had Hogan slamming Harley in 88 or whatever, but this is like the first Spanish announce table or I forget if it was Spanish in America, but it gets destroyed in the match. Brett takes a nasty bump. Diesel shoves him. He goes flying through his snaps. And that really starts an era of like table bumps that become to this day, like a big part of wrestling. It had never been done, especially in that big of a match. This match itself is also an interesting kickoff, I think, to the Attitude Era. Like it's kind of the end of the new gen. From like 96 still is kind of new gen, but this is really like, all right, like we're done with this past year or so of bullshit. Diesel has his best match in like a year, or at least, since Mania probably here as well. So, and is Brett getting his belt back after his year of, bullshit from losing it a year before at Survivor Series 94, kind of spends 95 wallowing. This felt like a make good, get the belt back on him. Diesel's got to figure his shit out. And again, the table breaking to me is the moment, because it's like an emphatic harbinger of what's to come over the next year, which is the transition to Attitude.
So, yeah. Where do you feel? I'm okay with like Sheamus Backlund territory. Do you think? I don't think it's bigger than the Goldberg streak, though. Oh, Goldberg, Shock, and Brock.
No, it's probably the bottom one right now, honestly. Well, I don't know. It's probably more memorable than, Pratt. If you're still watching, weigh in here. You're the Brett guy, but it feels like it's more memorable than Backlund beating Brett. Probably. I'm not saying it's like it's a better match too. Yeah, I'd put it above Backlund. Pratt says the table spot's so good it's organic, not someone setting up a table, which I agree with. It just comes out of nowhere. I think it's below Goldberg, Brock, and Charlotte.
Yeah, I agree. All right, I'm good with that. We can, as we go, we can go. All right, so the next one we have here is, in my opinion, going to be pretty high for me anyways. I'm curious what you think as an old school fan, and that is 2022. The Bloodline is victorious, and Sami Zayn is accepted as a Bloodline member. Justin, I was here live for this one, and it was fucking fantastic. You could feel like the aura of the War Games. This is the first War Games too, mind you, right?
Yeah.
So
non-NXT.
You could just feel the importance of this too as well. And then you have this clown show of a guy, Sami Zayn, all fucking year leading into this. And I don't know, he's like a court gesture. They don't look at him. And it's when they accept him, it's just, they're heels, by the way, mind you. When he's accepted, it's just like, that's fucking awesome. And then what it leads to, as he's in the Bloodline for 2 months, and then it leads to the Rumble in San Antonio we were in with that mega moment, and which led to Montreal, that mega moment and fantastic match, which led to WrestleMania 39 with the KO and Sammy versus the Usos, and what's even coming back to us now, where they're all coming back together. Them coming back together now, where that means so much without this moment here, is kind of my.
No, and I think even more importantly is it really kicks off like the amazing stuff, early in 23, right? With the Chamber in Montreal and, Sammy versus Roman there.
That's at WrestleMania 39. A lot of that is
title stuff with Owens
due to the investment on this night.
Right, and Sammy and Owens at the Rumble.
And it's a great match too.
Yeah, and the Bloodline's the biggest storyline of the modern era. I mean, it's, been going for 4 years now, whatever. So it's like, it's the mega powers of this era. It's the Austin McMahon of this era. Wherever you want to rank it. I know Chad's cringing, but probably like a top 5 WWF storyline, probably all time. So it's going to be up there.
Chad, fuck off.
On this list so far, I'd have it just only below Rocky and Deadly Games, I think. But I could be convinced to put it above Rocky. It's below Deadly Games, though.
I think that's where we're at, and I agree. It's below Deadly Games. I don't think it doesn't touch that peak, because that's like a one night thing. We had a lot of snowballing coming out of that. Not that didn't snowball at Deadly Game. I just feel that this is kind of where we're at. Are we too high on the Rocky Maivia thing, by the way?
Let's just see how it shakes out. I don't think so. Yeah. He's the biggest star in wrestling history.
No,
it's his debut. I think we're going to get to the one at the bottom, and we're going to say that's a top 3. It's most memorable, blah, 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 blah. But, of course, Johnny says we're too high on Rock. Whatever.
I don't know where we're going to stick with some of this stuff, especially some of them until we go. That's why it's kind of like,
I don't think we can have Taker's debut high and not have Rocky's when you look at it. I know Taker's at maybe a more Survivor Series moment, but like if Rocky just debuts on Raw or In Your House, I don't think it means as much. Like him being at MSG, sole survivor against a bunch of veterans. I just think that was like a really cool way, and it's a memorable part of that show. So yeah, I don't think it's too high. Let's see though.
All right.
We'll see if we go.
All right, the next one here, speaking of Elimination Chamber, is the debut of the Elimination Chamber. Eric Bischoff brings the Elimination Chamber to the Survivor Series. It's Madison Square Garden, and it's star-studded. I think we got Booker T, off the top of my head, Booker T, Shawn Michaels, RVD, Kane, Triple H, and Jericho. I think I nailed that. But it's a pretty good match. It's not one of the better ones, but it's memorable, and you get Shawn shitty tights, so in the Dutch boy haircut. So I think it's important, and historically, Elimination Chamber is a pretty important match in company history, right? And it's an underrated match in company history. He always delivers.
Allerton was there for Rocky's debut, so the crowd is middling for the entrance, but he got more over. Yeah, again, that's why I think when we get to Taker, it'll probably be higher because the moment is like cooler, but it's still it's important. And this is an interesting riddle. I think it's a good point too. The Chamber was meant to be War Games, and then they get War Games at Survivor Series 20 years later. I was at Survivor Series 02. The Chamber was like really cool and impressive to see live. Shawn, I feel like it could be a one and done at SummerSlam. Then this kind of almost feels like a lifetime achievement kind of thing for him. You get Triple H, like would have been crazy if his retired in 02. Like it felt like he may have to when RVD crushed his friggin' throat and put him in the hospital.
Larynx. Yeah.
The match is just great. I still remember Bischoff doing the pre-match with the pipe hitting the steel and everything.
Yeah,
and
it's so good.
It's like it's a big deal when you get these big match debuts.
You want to tell you where I feel this one kind of my gut tells me it's around 87 Survivor Series match.
Because we get the debut of the Survivor Series match, and now you get the debut of the Chamber match. If we were ranking gimmicks, like besides the Cell and the Ladder / TLC and the Rumble, Chamber's got to be like a top 5 WWF gimmick match ever, right? Like their creation.
Yeah.
So even if you wanted to, if we just take the cage out of it,
it's withstaying 20, almost 25 years now, right? 25 a lot of years.
And they had a whole pay-per-view about it forever. Andy's asking, was it a surprise that Shawn won? I think going in, he was kind of the favorite. I think you only thought maybe he wasn't going to win if you think he's not sticking around. It was either him or Hunter.
RVD was kind of like, is he finally going to get his moment 2 years later or a year later or whatever, right?
Yeah, they were kind of, but he had kind of been already squashed in September against Hunter at Unforgiven. So it felt like maybe, but Kane was hot too. But no, I think it was either Shawn or Hunter going in. So
yeah. All right, going into this, I have no clue where we're gonna go with this one, and that is the 1990 Survivor Series with the Gobbly Gooker. I don't know. Sound off, chat. Like I need the chat for this one. I don't know. It could be anywhere on the list, 1 through 25.
It's one of the most memorable Survivor Series moments ever.
What I'm talking about. They made a fucking figure out of it.
It is up there for sure. Is one of the most memorable ever. You see in every video package, we get the action figure now of the Gobbledygooker, Mean Gene dancing, Turkey in the Straw. But the only problem is it means nothing. It's probably the least important on this whole list. Like it literally means nothing. It could have never happened and meant nothing. The egg hype was pretty good. Like they really hyped it for weeks and weeks. Many thought Mark Callis was going to debut in the egg. So it's like,
he was.
Yeah. So it's a hard one to rank because, again, when it comes to Survivor Series moments, there's not many that you think of above it.
Do we lump it with the Chamber and the Survivor Series debut? And then we kind of figure that out, or is it more or less than that? What does your gut tell you?
I don't know. I could see it being last. I could see it being in the middle. I could see it being first, not first, but it's top 5.
Yeah, Pratt hits it pretty good. It fits the era perfectly. Like
it's insane. Like
I'm gonna put it between the Survivor Series debut and the Elimination Chamber debut for now, and then we just put our hands up. I have no fucking clue. Right?
All right, this one we could probably hit quick. It's 05, SmackDown versus Raw.
It's significant in that aspect.
Yeah, the match itself is it's important for that aspect. It's the first, like Raw versus SmackDown. You mentioned earlier with Ronda and Charlotte. It becomes a staple of Survivor Series, right? Like they do the brand war. They have the annual match. This is the first time they do it. It's also Orton's third straight Survivor, being the sole survivor or whatever. So Like
Yeah.
that's a big talking point that he's like, this incredible Survivor Series
Puts a
performer.
stamp on him as a
Yeah.
dude.
It's got some cool stuff in there. I think it's like Lashley's first big match, right? I think he's in that match.
Masters and Carlito are in there, which is pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, so there's some good stuff. And it's also good Undertaker coming out at the end where he comes and cleans house after he had been, put in the casket or whatever by the Ortons. And that sets up their Armageddon Hell in a Cell match the month later. So that's infamous too. Matt Hardy hides or whatever. Like it doesn't feed the Taker, and he gets punished after for a bit because he didn't take the choke slam like everyone else did. So
you want to
again, I think this is like
yeah.
This
you want to
is
split
probably
the new gen here? Split 95.
I think it goes below even. I think it even goes below Sheamus because it didn't really mean much.
Yeah, but it would go. The success of this would trick them to go on and have years and years and years of Raw versus SmackDown.
And put it below the table spot if you want to make it. It's like an innovative thing, because the table to me was like an innovative moment for tables breaking, and this is like an innovative Raw versus SmackDown for the next decade.
Yeah, we can talk about it when we get there as we kind of finalize it, but I feel like that's a good spot for it.
All right.
I actually watched this as I prepped for this, Justin, just to kind of get a feel for it, because I haven't watched it live since, and that is the 2020 Survivor Series, Undertaker's Farewell. I think it is warranted to be on this list because Undertaker is so, important to the Survivor Series. He debuts, he might as well farewell. What's weird about this is the middle of COVID. but it's a cool spot where, Shane McMahon, Booker T, Nash, the Mean Street Crew, whatever the fucking the crew is called, the Godwins, Godfather, fucking Kane in full gear comes out, and then Triple H, Shawn. It's just really cool. It's a nice celebration of Undertaker, but like Riddle just said, there's no crowd there, so you have like the screens that are clapping along, but it's so well done. It's important too because it was kind of a draw for them in the middle of COVID for old fans to come in and check out the product too as well. It's just bottom 5 in my opinion because it's cool, it's good. It's just, what does it mean?
You get the red line too of Taker Survivor Series being Taker's show. 30 years or whatever, 40 years was it? How many fucking years was it? 30 after his debut, 30, right? Yeah. So it's like, there's some synergy there. That's why they did it, but it did feel ham-fisted. Like, is this guy one of your greatest legends ever? Because that's what they fucking talk about him. And it's like, all right, we're gonna roll you out with they knew fans are coming back at some point by now. I can see this was like May 2020 where no one knew if we were gonna live or die. But by November, it was pretty obvious we were getting close to like kind of being back to normal at some point soon.
WrestleMania rumors and stuff, right? So
it's like it kind of felt like, hey, we're gonna like blow this big moment of yours like with a screen. So I think if they position it more of a tribute to Undertaker's legacy, more of it
was, right?
Yeah, they don't position it as like this is his farewell, final time ever. Like that should have been he gets to do it in front of the fans.
Well, he got that at the Hall of Fame, right? I think this is
but they sell it that way. So I'm just saying, don't sell it that way. Just position it as like we're going to pay tribute to this guy and make it a special night in his honor, and then it's different. It's almost like it's a ceremony for his 30 years of greatness versus like. This is the last time you'll see Taker, and he doesn't even get to see fans.
So it was a good presentation of nothing. It was just like a video package for the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it was like because there's no one there. It's like a video package. It's like a pre-produced. They could have just aired it as a video package.
But it was cool that Booker T and Shane and Shawn and they all got their entrances. And Justin, it was fucking 35 minutes of nothing. But it was
cool. They should have ran it somewhere where they could have brought people in, tested them and brought them in, whatever. Maybe even had like a few hundred fans around spread out in there. And that might have like added to it at least a little bit. So there's some live energy in the building. To me, it's at the bottom.
Yeah, it's bottom 5. What versus Sheamus cash-in? Yes or no?
It's below Sheamus because at least Sheamus was like a moment.
I'm good with leaving it there. And honestly, if we bookend the Undertaker, it kind of warrants it. All right, 2012. The debut of the Shield. It is Ryback versus.
Look at that hair on Reigns. Looks like a Lego.
Yeah. Versus Punk. It's important. We don't know what the Shield is for sure, but at the time he's brought in by the Punk to kind of protect him and be his quote unquote shield of the
It's got to go
WWE.
up the list. Like,
Oh, absolutely.
I think it's above Rocky, because to me it's like You could argue Reigns is one of the biggest stars ever. But I put it above Rocky because the moment is way fucking better. Like Rocky's match, Andy said it in the comments, right? Like the Rocky match was kind of whatever, the crowd's on into it. This is like chaos. And it's what they do with the Nexus ramped up to another level. And the fact that the Shield arguably becomes, they become the biggest acts in one of the biggest acts in company history as a group. It really kind of kickstarts the rebirth a little bit, like that 9, 10, 11 zone is moribund, and like end of 12 into 13 is kind of the wake up a little bit, then you get Brian and the yes movement and all that shit comes after the network, is right after it too. So it's like this really to me it also starts to, kind of, well, I guess they had already started the Stadium Manias, but it kind of starts Mania becoming like a bigger thing.
Yeah.
As well.
It's really an advertisement for the PC, right? It's
that too. Yeah. These are 3 homegrown stars.
Yeah.
Obviously Moxley and, Tyler Black have been stars elsewhere, but for all intents and purposes, these are guys that fed through the system, and really, came up and were presented as strong. And it's like they took what fucked up with the Nexus and, evolved it
2 years before this, right? All right. Versus Sami Zayn and the Bloodline are victorious versus this. What's your gut?
I think this is more memorable. I think
it's more memorable. It's more important, but I just think the Sami stuff's better. We can go down that road.
I just think you don't have the Sami stuff without the Shield debuting.
All right. Well, we don't have the Survivor Series unless of 87 debuts. So
but that's why it's just Jesse and Gorilla at that moment. Now we
can't
revamped at that moment. It's Deadly Games is still number 1. I think because it's the hottest period.
I don't think we're in that. I don't think we're in that stratosphere yet.
No.
All right.
This one's also, I think, probably going to be more toward the bottom. It's 1996.
Oh, but Sid, it's so good and memorable.
Awesome,
Who's the man? Who's the fucking man? It's the best, dude. But yes, for sure, 100%. I think it's near
out of nowhere.
Yeah,
great match out of nowhere.
If you're listening and you're not on visual, it's Sid beating Shawn Michaels. I think it's near Goldberg and Brock.
Yeah, I think right around that Brett Diesel, Bob, Brett Backlund.
I think it's above Brett and Diesel, in my opinion.
The crowd is awesome. Obviously, Andy was obviously at this one too because he said he was at Rocky's debut. So, like, the crowd is.
Well, maybe he left early. You never know.
Yeah. The crowd's unbelievable for this. You get the repeat of the November to Remember, with the using the camera. Jose Lothario with the heart attack, and it was a big surprise.
The worst part of it. That was the worst part. Lothario
I don't think I don't think anyone was about Sid. He just didn't seem like he was going to knock off Shawn during that run. It was a big shock at the time, but the crowd just goes fucking bananas for him destroying it. It just felt like, again, like the Brett Diesel the year before. It really felt like, okay, now like we're done with the white meat baby face, and this really kicks off the era of 6-7 guys in the mix fighting over the world title. We're done with the challenger du jour style of the Hogan, Brett, Shawn, where this kind of every month faces a new contender or whatever. This really felt more like, all right, we have 7-8 guys in the mix that could all be world champion versus just a champion and a challenger. So it was important. It's in MSG, which is cool. It's kind of the, sneaky house of a little bit of Survivor Series. So
it may move up. We'll see. I think I'm higher on it than you, but what do we got here next, Justin? Oh God, the big.
We're going to 99.
99. So he fills in for Austin where Rikishi did.
So this is like a hybrid. Yeah, this is Austin getting run over / Big Show. Coming in and winning the world title. That Austin Rock Hunter match was really well built. Like, it sucks we didn't get it because it's kind of the 3 big guys and they had been rotating around and feuding. Austin obviously couldn't go. It gets a little bit of a black mark because it is a big bait and switch. Like, they still advertise the match, even though they knew Austin couldn't wrestle. Big Show squashes Kai and Ty and Boss Man and Albert earlier in the night. And then, they gave it a go, right? He comes out but even after this, they don't really present him as a focal point of the promotion. It's still all about Hunter's growth. Rock, Vince, like, though they're still the top guys. Show is like meanders the Boss Man and they loses the belt back to Hunter. So I don't think it does much for him. And I've always argued Test maybe should have been the guy to win this year because he had the whole thing going with Stephanie and the McMahons, and like he was pretty over. I think that would have been a more complete story that he gets that slot and sticks it to Hunter for screwing him, out of the way.
He would have to be good in the long run.
No, you do the same thing. You lose it 6 weeks later. Who gives a shit? This was always going to be like a Garvin / transitional champion, right? So it's like whatever. It was more to pop the moment and make up. See, Riddle me this agrees with me. That he should have been Test. He was way more with a Big Show in this spot.
Test should never have been WWE champion.
This was his hottest time. He had the lover or leaver match.
Yeah. All right. Where do you think this is? This is more of a.
It's toward the bottom, probably above Sheamus. I think it's more memorable.
Yeah, because of the Austin car crash thing, right?
Yeah.
Who hit
But
Austin.
I think Owen with the towel is more memorable.
Yeah.
Especially because the payoff sucks of the car thing. Like, so at least the Backlund kicks off Diesel and like the new generation, for better or worse.
All right, Justin, we're in the final 5 here, right? And this one popped on the screen. 2023 CM Punk returns, Chicago after the War Games. Have you watched the 9-minute documentary?
No.
What? I've watched it 3 times. Come on.
Good. You watched it for me and you.
What are you doing? All right. You watch it. It's fucking awesome.
Right. I want to end this and I'll go watch it.
I think this is top tier. I think this is I think the moment is incredible. The uncertainty of it actually happening. It's like, it's the underlining of, all right, take it off the screen. All right, take it off the screen. You're gross. All right. Anyways, the uncertainty of, is he coming back? I don't think so. The underlining, it's never going to happen. Like, yes, hell froze over, right. And then the pinball of a fantastic year, even with a 6-month injury. Feud of the year with McIntyre boils down to this return, a future WrestleMania main event or future WrestleMania match with Rollins, perhaps. The night after promo where he lays out his year now in retrospect for the pop that he gets when he's going to team with the Bloodline with the original Bloodline versus the Bloodline. The stuff with Heyman weaving in. There's so much possibilities coming out of this. I think it's top 10, top 5. I think it's bigger than 2020.
Yeah, Riddle just said it's the greatest surprise return ever. I mean, it's definitely up there, especially when you bake in the history between them, all the AEW stuff that come out of it, Punk being a malcontent and all this shit.
I think it's bigger than the Shield. And
they do a big, great tease with Orton being the guy, and you think, okay, that's a surprise, right? So that's a cool fake out as well, that they go that route with it. And I mean, we were here like in my basement watching with a big group of guys, fans, and it was like we all went, insane when he came out. That slow delay before they hit the song is cool. It's below the Shield because I just think the Shield.
No, why?
The Shield debut. The Shield their debut means way more into the history of WWE than Punk. This is a legacy run for Punk. It doesn't mean anything in the long run. It's a cool that he came back.
Punk brought in the Shield.
Shield's arrival is like the modern.
I didn't put it above it yet.
Coming from the AWA, Austin coming from WCW, Shield coming from the Performance Center / Indies to shape. The Shield shapes the next 12 years of WWE. The entire fucking company is built around them.
And done the same thing.
No, not to that effect. That Survivor Series.
They were brought in by Stone Cold. They were brought in by CM Punk.
But I think what we're seeing is like Survivor Series is a show of debuts,
huge
returns. Huge. Like
debuts.
I don't think there's been more debuts at a show in history than Survivor Series. Like it's insane just how many they pepper this list. Like how many debuts and returns there are.
Title changes too, as well, right?
Yeah, it's historically a mammoth show.
I'm good with it. I think the Shield. I'm just being.
They dominate. The whole promotion is built around Ambrose, Rollins, and Reigns for the next 12 years after they arrive.
I know it is what it is. We'll cross.
Yeah, they're the biggest 3 stars. Yeah, I mean, if you want to discount Ambrose a little bit because he got pissy at the end, but it's like
Punk's a bigger star than 2 of them.
He was already a star though. This is his comeback. So it's like it's his legacy run. It's like Hogan in 02.
The biggest comeback in company history.
The biggest comp to me is Hogan coming back with the NWO, and look how they did that. It was a bit of a fart bomb.
It wasn't a surprise. It wasn't the
Right, that's my point. So this is an evolved version. It's really great, but in the long run, Hogan coming back didn't mean as much as when he debuted in '84.
Yeah, but when the night
in '84,
the night of the night of 2012 and the night of 2023, the night of 2023 felt bigger and more important. Yeah,
sure.
Coming out of it,
I think 12 means more to the legacy of the company than Punk.
I know, but we're talking about Survivor Series moments. That's where we start splitting hairs. We're gonna let it linger.
That is a Survivor Series moment. That was like
I know, but we're talking about that night. All right, we're gonna let it linger.
Happened a year ago. You can't. You need some hindsight.
No, but we're talking about at the Survivor Series. Let it linger. Let it marinate. We'll figure it out.
No, we said it was gonna everything. We said it was everything. Importance, historical.
This is the gray line that we kind of.
Yeah, you're a gray line.
All right, 2021.
All right, it's the end of the invasion. 2001.
2001, yeah.
Yeah, the blow off of the invasion. It's an awesome Survivor Series match. I think it's underrated as a match. Shane getting the shit kicked out of him by all the finishers is great. It's a great match. The only thing you can say is like it gets a little ham-fisted with Angle kind of turning but not turning, Jericho kind of turning but not turning, and then it's like if you care about WCW and ECW in any way, Vince at the end with the arms up, standing tall, like it's a little like ham-fisted, and it's kind of like a fuck you. So like that.
It's a good way to end it's a good way to end the invasion era.
Yeah, I also believe though the invasion should have lasted till Mania. Like I think that was a whiff too, that they sped it so much and it was so meaningless by the end that they blow it off here. And Riddle's right. I think it is probably arguably the greatest Survivor Series match of all time. Survivor Series style match. So it's
okay. Weigh it versus 2025 or weigh it against 2005.
Oh, it's up from that. I would say it's like in that
2003.
I think it's in that 87 Chamber Gooker in there because it's like the greatest version of the match ever. It's a big angle, so I think it means more.
All right, I'll put it. I'm good here. We'll figure it out when we get there. It's in that little like cluster right now. Right now, it's like 8, 9, 10.
Yeah,
that spot. All right, what do we got now, Dustin?
Oh boy,
you
can probably just bump this to number 1. It's Montreal. The most memorable Survivor Series moment of all time. When you think Survivor Series, you think Montreal. Brett versus Shawn, the screw job, kicks off Mr. McMahon, ends this half a decade long rivalry between Brett and Shawn. DX versus the Hart Foundation, sets up the finish of Deadly Games a year later.
There's books written about it. There's documentaries. There's movies. There's
what ifs and this what ifs.
It's one of the most important nights in wrestling history, right?
Sadly, starts a lot of the tragedy for the Hart family.
Yep.
Down the road where obviously, Owen
probably
doesn't pass away if Brett's not forced out. Brett probably doesn't have the stroke and all that. Like, there's so many what ifs from there.
Can you imagine if Bret Hart doesn't have the stroke in '99, right? And then WCW shit happens, and say it's like 2002, and you get like a Bret Hart return. Do you think it would be as big as a CM Punk return?
Yeah. Yeah, if the screw job happens and then he comes back, yes. And
it's quiet, it's not talked about, and he just shows the fuck up.
To me, it's Owen is what it kills it. Because I think if Owen doesn't die, I think Brett comes back no matter what. I think they get past the screw job. I think they figure that out. I think the way Owen died and the way things go is that it ends up just making that such an irreparable relationship for so long.
Yeah, Brett makes a good point.
Yeah. It's just such a historical moment. It overshadows Survivor Series. But I still think when you think Survivor Series, you think of this.
It's one of the biggest moments in company history. So I think it's easily the number 1, and it will stay at number 1. Right?
Yeah, I think so. And
I don't know.
Yeah.
Keith and Peter Winston might have this one next, number 1.
Just one more thing on the Brett thing. I think him coming back with the invasion thing could have been.
What side would he be on?
Well, I think him coming back to take down Vince, like, could
Yeah,
have been really
that
cool.
would have made WCW babyfaces, right?
He's not going to come back inside with Vince.
Yeah, I know. It just doesn't feel like it fit. All right, here's Peter Winston in Keith Langston's number one, and that is 1988. Mr. Fuji turning on Demolition and joining the Powers of Pain. Justin, why does this make sense, or why does this not make sense?
So this is like I think the first real true Survivor Series moment. I know we get 87 on there, but that's a memorable one. You always think of the Demolition Powers of Pain double turn when you think of
It's
like
cool.
Survivor Series things. I still don't think it makes logical sense from Mr. Fuji's position, but he's a stooge, so he goes with it. I think it's when I started watching wrestling in 1990 or renting tapes, like this is when they talked about it a lot, like, oh, Fuji double crossing Demolition. The way they do it is cool. Again, even logically, it doesn't make a ton of sense, but them, Fuji just suddenly, costing Demolition out of nowhere. The Powers of Pain help them up. You also get the Conquistadors as part of it, which is cool. Like their little miracle run through the match. Them slamming Fuji on the floor is really cool. And it sets up a big Mania match that gets like a monster pop when they beat Fuji at WrestleMania. And, the great gorilla, Fuji would have been better being on the apron instead of getting the match, right? Costing the match. So Andy didn't get it at the time. I still don't get it why Fuji would turn on the champs to go with imposters, but is what it is.
It's going to mean to the North-South connection place to be people. This is going to mean more than to a normal fan, right? Just because we've talked about it for the last fucking 10 to 15 years, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Where do you think it lines up though? Is it bigger than the Gooker?
No.
Is it bigger than Sid and Sean in 96?
I think for Survivor Series, I think it's up there next to Gooker.
Yeah. So you think it's?
But I think if you want to layer in like,
it seems like it's second tier of that. Like it's just below that.
Right. So it depends on how you want to stack it versus.
I think my gut tells me it's underneath the Chamber debut.
Yeah, because to me that Austin Bischoff line is like the end of Survivor Series moments, and below that are great things that happened at Survivor Series. Above that are like Survivor Series moments. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but like, so I think around there makes a lot of sense because that's like it's synonymous with Survivor Series. Like I don't think Charlotte Ronda is synonymous with Survivor Series. I don't think Goldberg Brock is synonymous with Survivor Series, but I think everything from this Demolition Powers of Pain up, like it meant something to happen at Survivor Series for the most part.
In fairness to the older ones, right? There's a pay-per-view every month, and in 2018, it's a pay-per-view every 3 weeks,
right?
Right. Yeah. So it just happened to be Survivor Series turn, but the importance of Raw versus SmackDown in being in Survivor Series a Big Four, they want to make sure that match showed out and show up because at WrestleMania it was important for the women to main event.
You said a hot crew.
It was important. I think it's important. Like Survivor Series was important for them to have a big Survivor Series moment for those girls at that time. So I don't want you to underweigh it. I personally think we're a little low on it, but we'll get to that as we get to it. I feel like everything's good so far, and then we can adjust as we go, as we have 2 moments left. And the second last one is 2014 Sting debut.
Another huge friggin' debut at Survivor Series. It's like crazy. This is a tough one because in the long run doesn't mean much.
It doesn't mean much, but it was huge in the time, and it was a great match. Ziggler was fantastic.
He was. I almost wanted to make that the moment too. If you want to kind of tag it with this, like kind of like we did a couple other ones where like
with the Big Show in the car.
Yeah, I think it kind of ties together. But yeah, Sting coming out after years of teases. We had the one in 11 was like kind of the most recent one where he was going to maybe fight Taker at Mania with the whole, I think it ended up being Jericho, right? The whole 2-11-11, whatever the hell that thing was. And he, the moment itself of like a guy that had never had always been like the face of the competition to try and take down WWE, one of those guys that just never wanted to give in and go. And he finally does. It sets up what should be a super memorable Mania match. we talked about our countdown earlier this year. Again, I like that match. It's just a finish, like give Sting his moment. That kind of hurts. Sting goes on
Well,
later
this,
to have.
in retrospect, this is Sting's moment right here.
Well, and the Rollins match. Like besides the injury, I really like him in the Rollins match. Like I think that's a lot of fun. But yeah, this is the Sting moment. Like you should have done this in the Hall of Fame, and that could have been it.
Yeah.
The problem is before the Rollins match where he's in the box with the paint and it's melting when he comes off.
Yeah, his face paint is like hanging by his eyebrow or something. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a cool one though. I'd
I
put
don't
it
know
up
I don't
there.
know where to put this. Like if we did this say 5 years ago, I think it would be higher than is now.
I'd probably put it below like Sid, maybe.
All right, what does that look? Yeah, I'm fine with that. I think that's good.
It just doesn't mean a lot historically, but it's a really cool Survivor Series moment.
Yeah, but the match is really
It's
good.
well executed. The match is great. But yeah, like
So
in the
right now
long
it's 8.
run,
Yeah.
in the long run, if he never comes to WWE, it doesn't mean anything. Like it's like whatever. If anything, it saves that. And then Riddle even said it, like his AEW run is so fucking good, and the farewell he gets there
Yeah.
is so epic that it really kind of makes us even pale more, the way they did it.
Yep. All right. And the last one here, Justin, is well, first, before we get to the last one, right? We didn't include 96 Brett versus Austin because it was more of a match, not a moment. So we just kind of wanted to give it its flowers here and say, yeah, we've talked about a few matches here, but this is just moment. Even though that was a big moment within a match, kind of putting but their moment was 5 months later at WrestleMania 13 to kind of solidify who they would become for the rest of their WWF run. So that's why I wanted. It's definitely warrants a like greatest match in Survivor Series history, perhaps, but it just didn't make our moment list because
Right. You could say Brett's return, but I don't know. Like, yeah, I don't think it stands out much as a moment. And honestly, like we have a big gap in our lists we have nothing from 06 through 10. It's kind of like a weird era where there's not a lot of big moments. If there's a stretch where Survivor Series is like kind of meaningless, it's that stretch there where it becomes just another show. They did a nice job in like 11 on kind of bringing it back to mean something. But it did feel like it was disregarded a lot in that era. 06, 07. There's some stuff that happens in there, but like nothing to me that's like an all-time.
Cena's return home and wins the title, and then 9 is like DX versus Cena, right? It's cool, but it just
so we don't know what the
make
last one coming is. So if you're in the chat and you want to weigh in, or even if you're watching this after the fact and you want to comment on YouTube, what do we miss? Are there any other big moments? Even like there's nothing from 92, 93. There's a little gap there.
Razor is cool with Flair, but it's not a moment, right? It's just.
And even Brett Shawn, you could say like their first match is kind of a moment, but whatever.
There'd be bigger Brett and Shawn moments, right?
Yeah, 93 there's not
nothing.
No, 89 as well. There's really no big
Rowdies versus Rude's
Yeah, that promo. Maybe that would be the closest to Rowdy's promo, maybe. Yeah, so there's not a ton there. So I think 2000 was another one. Like it shows you how much they missed in that year of pay-per-views 2000. For such a red hot year in the company, the pay-per-views themselves really were lacking. So for like Survivor Series 2000 to not have anything that stands out enough to be on this list, I guess you get Austin thumping Triple H on the friggin' forklift, but that was like whatever. So yeah, I think if there's anything you think we missed that we didn't hit, let us know. I think 17 we don't have anything either, right?
No. But we're still in the Raw versus SmackDown era, right? And it's kind of all melds together with Charlotte and Ronda being the peak there. All right, but the last moment we have here is 1990, Justin. It is The Undertaker's debut. This is a top 5 moment, of course. Shout out to Luke. He just did a retrospect on the Place to Be feed and our feed on the NoSo, where he live watched this. And he did a good job of kind of putting the significance of the Undertaker's debut here. DiBiase does a great job setting it up. It's definitely top 5. Riddle thinks it's number 1. Justin, give me your pitch to where you think it is.
So I think it's obviously like a legacy Survivor Series moment.
My gut tells me it's not over Montreal, though.
It's talked about every year since. Like that's one of the main clips you see when you do Survivor Series memories. Brother Love bringing them out. The fan reaction's awesome. It's a rare time too in there, like where a mystery partner actually like really delivered,
Yeah.
even though no one knew who he was.
No one knew who he
Obviously,
was.
becomes one of the best of all time in the company history, one of the biggest of all time. Um, and he nails one of my favorite gorilla lines. Hits him with a tombstone. A what? I think it's a tombstone. So, and that's on poor Coco, who does the job. He does look like kind of a bitch, like him and Dusty brawl to the back. I don't know why they hesitated to not have him just win the match. Like
Well, the
DiBiase,
final survive because it's the final survivor, right? And they had
yeah,
to
I guess,
get they
but
had
get
to
him
know.
there and then have him get counted out in that match. At least,
Well, what he's going to be a foe for Hogan and Warrior. Why don't present him there at that moment? Like save that, right? I get
could you
why
have
they
done
did it.
something where he wins that and then Brother Love holds him out of the main event and he says, "He's my guy's already paid. Like I don't need this. Like risk
And
me
it could have
getting
been
hurt."
something cute there, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I get it.
Or maybe he says he was only here for DiBiase's money and we don't need it anymore.
Yeah,
Um,
it's just not a perfect moment the way he exited that match. I agree with that,
it's a
right?
little weak, yeah. But it's obviously a massive Star Stars moment. I think an interesting comp is Rocky, right? Like, so let's start there. Do you have it
I,
above or
all
below
right,
Rocky?
I'll move him up to Rocky. I think he's higher than Rocky.
All right, even though Rocky's a bigger star, I think Taker's debut is done better and it's more memorable long term. Um, even though they
I
both,
would put it over. I think it's top 5. I think it's over Sami Zayn and the Bloodline are victorious.
yeah,
I think there.
it's below Montreal for me for sure.
It is below
Montreal
Montreal.
shapes the entire company forever. like,
All right,
like we
let's
talk
just do
about
this.
Taker could have. We talk about stuff where like, you know, Taker, these things that could have happened on other shows. Like this could have happened at the Rumble and been the same. He comes
Yeah.
out, the buzzer rings, and Brother Love walks him out. Everyone's like, "Who the hell is this guy?" Um, Montreal shapes the entire future of the company. like Montreal drives Mr. McMahon is one of the biggest angles of all time.
All
Deadly
right, so
Games is an interesting one.
that's our one, right? Would it make sense if we just breeze 25 up? I just to so we have a little so it's not anticlimactic as we go down the list where we kind of gain
Well,
momentum
hang on,
coming
because
up.
I want to let's just talk these top 4. Let's just do that quick.
But we're saving the best. We're eating our dessert now. All right, go ahead.
All right, get the shit out of the way. Go ahead. Taker's final farewell to me is last. Like
Yep.
it's
Famous
pandemic
cash. I'm
last.
good. Undertaker running
No,
over
we have
Big
Austin and
Show.
Big Show. Big Show wins the
Yep.
title.
Backlund. I'm good
Yeah,
here.
I think those two are similar.
Top 20 is the bottom 20 is good, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Sting
I think those are the
debut.
5. Clearly the 5 bottom.
Yeah, this is the tier where we get Sting debut, Sid beats Shawn, Goldberg shocks Brock, and then Charlotte and Ronda brawl. Is that order fine for the bottom
Yeah, I
teams?
think these are the 5 when you look at them that like meant something more in the moment. From that moment till Mania means something. They're fun in the moment, but long term to me don't really affect the legacy of the company. Like Sting's debut doesn't mean anything long term.
Yep.
Sid beating Shawn doesn't really mean anything long term. Goldberg Brock, awesome moment, kind of ends by Mania the next year. Charlotte Ronda, kind of the same. Like that sets up that big Mania main event. I think it's the biggest of all these things, but after that, kind of
I
whatever.
think it's the top tier there. It's more I see in my opinion, I think it kind of just solidifies the women's revolution, right? Because that's the Evolution pay-per-view is hovering around here as well, mind you. And it's the peak of the women. I think is it bigger than Bischoff in Austin? I think Bischoff and Austin's a better match, but I would make it.
Well, I
I'd
mean,
make the
Austin's
case.
like the biggest star in company history. It's kind of positioned as his farewell, even though it's not. But in the moment, it kind of is.
Yeah.
It also sets up Orton, one of their next other biggest stars of the next 20 years from there. And that's really to me is
big. Who's the bigger star, Charlotte or Orton?
I mean, they get 20 years out of Orton. like,
Yeah. My gut
Charlotte
tells me
probably bigger at her peak, but I think Orton means more long term, probably.
Yeah, it's coming up. I'm fine with it. All right, so demos.
But Charlotte, let me change this. Right. Charlotte was already established at this point. Like this doesn't establish Charlotte. She was already established as a star.
Yeah,
This
but
is the star
it
maker for Orton.
establishes the women can be on this grandest
We just
stage.
did that. Wasn't the Cell like the month before this, like with Sasha and who like or whatever? Wasn't that right before this? Or was
Yeah,
that
but
the
we're
next year?
putting a staple on the main event of WrestleMania 35 with the first women in
They get
company.
there without this brawl. This brawl wasn't even fucking planned. They were gonna do main event Mania anyway. It was supposed to be Becky.
Yeah, but this was so important that they gave us the main event here. All right, it's fine. I'm good with it being 16th.
I think it's
Austin.
important, but I think Austin, I think Orton being established as a megastar in that match, Sean's blade job, Austin Bischoff blowing off, Austin's farewell, and it being a great match to me, put it above.
Yeah. All right, I'm good with the top 5 or the bottom 10 here. All right, Demolition versus the Elimination Chamber versus the Gobbledygooper versus the end of the invasion.
Yeah, I think
As we get into the
Demolition is the least consequential of all these. So to me, that's fine there. I think I'd go Gooker next because I think that doesn't mean shit. But it deserves to be in that top 15 because it's an iconic Survivor Series moment. I think that and the Powers of Pain turn a close. They're like you kind of think of them both.
Is the Chamber bigger than the invasion ending? My gut tells me it is.
Yeah, because it sets up one of the biggest gimmick matches of the 20 years to follow. And they're both great matches. The debut, I think I said it at the beginning, 10 for the Survivor Series 87. I'm going to leave it right there.
Where it is.
Yeah, I think it's at the bottom of the top. Again, iconic with Gorilla and Jesse and the peanut butter pie and the turkey hat and all that stuff. So
I'm good. Actually, it became 10 organically, and I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah.
All right. 9. Rock.
Now this to me is where we get to like these are the moments. So like that stretch from 10 to 14 are like important Survivor Series legacy stuff, right? Like the Gooker, the Powers of Pain, end of the invasion, Thanksgiving tradition begins, and the Chamber kicks off. But now, like to me, like 9 up are the moments. Like so, Rock and Cena to me is the least important of all those because you get to 28 without it, but it's still a really cool moment.
MSG, yeah, I agree with the sentiment that.
And another one we didn't include that probably could have been our buddy Pudgy thinks we need the 4 doinks in the top 10, but that's fine. One we didn't include, Ryan, was from 2011 actually, Punk winning to kick off his reign, and Fink doing his last like kind of big announcement in MSG. Like,
yeah,
you could argue that's bigger than like Sheamus probably.
We'll just account for it when we get to 2023. That is bigger than Sheamus cashing in Money in the Bank, for sure.
Probably bigger than Big Show too, or Backlund. Like that probably should have been on there. I think that's the biggest whiff we have is Punk starting his epic reign with Fink doing the intro.
Well, I think we're just trying to spread across, stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, we just don't have any. I guess we have the other one from. Well, is that 12? When is that? Is that 11 or 12?
That's 11.
That's 11, right? Is MSG? Yeah.
All right. And then we come to 1991. The Undertaker defeats Hulk Hogan for the WWF title a year after debuting. Yeah, I think that's bigger than Rock and Cena. I just don't. Is it bigger than the Rocky Maivia debut?
It is.
Yeah, Angle did debut, or did Angle debut on Sunday Night Heat before with Meat?
No, I think Survivor Series is his first match. That was another guy.
Another debut, yeah.
Yeah.
That was in a dead zone of 99. Right?
Yeah, Angle's debut could be on here too. I would say Rocky's debut is more important than Taker Hogan.
It's more memorable though.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Because you got Flair, you get the title held up, you get the 92 Rumble, one of the greatest matches of all time comes from it.
Yeah, that more important than the Rock's debut though?
It's not. Oh, the Rock's. I'm sorry, I thought we were talking about Rock and Cena. Rock's debut is above Taker and Hogan.
All right. Is it big? Is the Rock's debut bigger than Sami Zayn and the Bloodline?
I think Taker's debut and Rock's debut need to be together, and I think Taker goes ahead of it. But I think they're very similar moments.
All right, then I'm moving the Shield below CM Punk. for a singular.
This isn't a trade. I mean, these are
Yes,
independent
it is.
things.
This is a trade. All right, if this was you and fill in other guy, fucking 24 would be CM Punk and 22 would be the Bloodline.
That's not true. I said Punk is top 5. I'm with it. I just think Shield is more important.
All right, I'll give you. I do. My gut does tell me that Sammy in the Bloodline victorious.
We need to see,
below,
like, if we do this in 5 years,
yeah.
let me see where the Sammy thing even goes from there. Like, I think in this, we know within
we're
2
already
years,
getting residuals 2 years later off of it, though, and we want to talk about all these ping pong moments. We had a 2023. The start of that year was fucking fantastic, and that was all based off of this night.
I don't disagree. I mean, I was hyping it earlier. I think we're talking about a show that has 35 years of history, almost 40 years of history. And we're saying
every fucking year.
We're saying it's the 7th biggest moment in 40 years of a show. So I think it's getting its love, no matter what.
Oh, I know it's getting its love. Yeah. All right, so I think that the Undertaker debuting is below Rocky for sure.
Above Rocky, I mean. Higher.
That's what I meant. Yes.
Yeah.
All right,
now Taker's debut is more important than Rocky's debut.
All right, so where are we at now? So from the top, now that we've kind of scuffered in and we're in the top 5 or 6 zone.
Right. You can move the Shield to Punk because it's the best of the debuts.
Yeah. All right. So from the top
moments,
Montreal Screwjob's number 1, right?
Absolutely.
Is Deadly Games Tournament 2?
So it's an interesting one because I think you could argue. No, it didn't mean much, but it did because it solidifies Rock's heel turn, which sets him up to be a monster babyface. It sets up, it restarts Mr. McMahon's second phase. It turns Foley into like an icon.
Yep.
It's the greatest one night booking I think that they've ever done.
It's peak Attitude Era. It's right. It's some people are golden child.
The greatest era most profitable era they've had.
Some people are golden era, and other people are Attitude Era. But it's either one or peaks, right?
You could argue if you don't count match quality, if you just take that out of the equation, you could argue it may be the best pay-per-view they ever did. Like if you just take out wrestling and just say story wise from top to bottom, it's up there, for sure. I think it's my top 2, unless you want to say the Shield debut means more than Deadly Games. But I look at Montreal and Deadly Games as like a package because it kicks off Mr. McMahon.
I think that's one. I think that's the tier. I think Montreal's a tier of its own. And then I think that Deadly Games is 2. And then I feel that this clusterfuck of 3 to 5, because I can see the case for Undertaker being 3 debuting as well, if we're talking importance, right? In bookending and so on and so forth. I'm just like 3, 4, 5. I'm uncertain about personally.
I think we go. All right, bear with me. I'm going to slide Punk down.
Starting off weak here.
Well, I think you put the 3 debuts back to back to back, or the 4. Yeah, the 3: Shield, Taker, Rocky, in whatever order you want to put them.
Listen, you can't have a return without a debut, right? So, I don't disagree, but it's just hard to be a prisoner in the moment, right? I think the Punk stuff is electric. I think it's like I still get goosebumps. Do you get goosebumps watching the Shield?
I just don't know how much it means, though. Like,
what do you mean you don't know what it means? It's fucking 4. It's been 9 years. He's never coming back. He was just fired from AEW.
But if that doesn't happen, does anything change over the last year without him being there? No, it doesn't. Nothing changes. If he doesn't come back, nothing changes.
But
nothing. Nothing changes.
No, fuck you with that argument. Fuck you with that argument.
Nothing changes if he's not there.
Okay, it means nothing. Put fucking Chris Hero in instead of Roman Reigns. Does anything change? Like, of course, it's important, but you can't make that argument.
You can really just say Chris Hero over Roman Reigns.
Survivor Series. Put yourself in.
You've been jacking off over the Bloodline moment the whole night, and now suddenly you can just swap out Reigns.
No, put yourself in 20 is what I'm saying, right? Put yourself in 2023, night of. euphoria. You feel
Dude, I'm telling you,
fantastic.
it's still like
It's
a
a
top
great moment.
5.
Put yourself in 2012, and you're like, oh, who are these new guys? That's pretty fucking cool. They look awesome,
Yeah,
and
but the
you
whole
know they
company for the
should be
next
the
12
future.
years is shaped off of that night.
Yeah, it's pretty much how you look at it. We're looking at the so far, but Punk has come back. You can't say he hasn't been important whatsoever. He's had feud of the year in 2024, right?
So what? There's other
And
great feuds.
and he was hurt half of the year, and he was still
Look at Riddle
important.
coming through at the fact.
And look at the pop that he gets last SmackDown. All
So
significant.
what?
You can't say that
doesn't mean
nothing
anything.
would matter if he didn't come back. That's a bullshit argument.
Look, if he wins a belt at Mania and drives another boom and dominates the promotion for the next 10
He's
years
not
like
going to.
Reigns,
He's
and
43 years old.
exactly. That's why it means more for the Shield's debut, because if that debut fart bombs,
but in the Survivor Series, in the moment, it's
the
more
Shield
important.
debut. If that debut fails, if it's not that awesome, it's the Nexus. And you don't have these 3 guys anchoring your whole promotion for the next 10 years. Just like if Undertaker fart bombs and comes out of the fucking egg, you don't get Undertaker over the next 30 years.
The Undertaker should be number 1, is what you're saying.
No,
No,
the
that's
top
bullshit.
2 to me are in their own world.
She doesn't even know what she's talking about. Fuck this. You know something? Charlotte's going to 25. Fuck off, Jenny. All right. I'm standing by this
moment. I just don't think it's, when you think of to survive, like the importance of it, to me, it's with Zayn, Bloodline,
if you want to
Taker,
talk about this
Hogan.
importance, then the Undertaker and Rocky Maivia should be above the Shield. And you telling me
Well,
that
that's what I was starting to say when you lost your mind. I was going to say it should go Montreal and Deadly Games because they're the 2 biggest things, like the biggest and the greatest. And then it should go Taker, and then Shield, and then Rocky is my thing, and then Punk.
But your argument would be Rocky's bigger than the Shield guys. He's a bigger
Yeah, but the Shield moment is they're equally as important.
That's when you that's when you start melding your arguments.
All right, then Rocky should be above Taker then.
I think this is fine. Montreal, Deadly Games, Shield, Taker, Punk, Rocky. Just because Rocky Maivia becomes the Rock, and of course it's important.
Yeah, I think you could argue of all those, you could argue that,
and I think the Taker should be above the Shield.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Of all those, you could argue that Rocky was the one that could have debuted on Raw and had nothing be different.
Yes,
like of all of those 3,
the Rock becomes 3 different things before he becomes the Rock.
Yeah.
Right.
So of those 3, you could argue like he could have debuted anywhere, and that's why, like, Pudgy mentioned Angle. To me, it's like, all right, Angle's debut is so milquetoast that could have happened on any show and been the same. Rocky's, you could argue Rocky as well, but I only put it on here because he's such a big star, and also they do show it a lot. Like, fucking Bennett was a Deadly Game, you son of a bitch.
Bennett, I talked about you for like 3 minutes, twice already. So you're in too late, buddy.
But I'm jealous. But that should be
that's great. Yeah. I am really jealous. But Justin, we were at January 4th, 99, right? So we kind of got it right.
Yep. And there you go. Poor Hogan.
All right. So Justin, just for the audio listeners, I'm going to go 25-1, 20, 25, 2022 or 2020 Undertaker farewell, 24 Sheamus cash in, 23 1999 Austin ran over by a car in the Big Show wins the world title, 22 94 Bob Backlund wins the world title, 21 Raw versus SmackDown 2005, 20 95 Brett Diesel table spot, 19 2014 Sting debut, 18 1996 Sid defeats Shawn Michaels, 17 2016 Goldberg shocks Brock Lesnar, 16 2018 Charlotte and Ronda crazy brawl, 15 2013 or 2003 Team Austin versus Team Bischoff, 14 1988 Demolition Powers of Pain double turn Mr. Fuji, 13 1990 the Gobbledygooker reveal, 12 2001 the invasion ends, 11 20 2002 Elimination Chamber debut. 10, 1987, the Survivor Series match debut. Number 9, 2011, The Rock and John Cena teaming up. Number 8, 1991, Undertaker defeats Hulk Hogan for the WWF title. 7, 2022, Sami Zayn and the Bloodline are victorious. 6, 1996, Rocky Maivia debuts. 5, 2023, CM Punk returns. 4, 2012, The Shield debuts. 3, 1990, The Undertaker debuts. 2, 1998, Deadly Game Tournament. And number 1, 1997, the Montreal Screwjob. Have you ever heard of it?
Yeah, I feel good about all that. And we mentioned a couple that probably should have been included here earlier. So I think we have a good encapsulation. Kind of. I think the biggest miss again was Punk at 11. I would have had that pretty. Honestly, I would have had that.
That's like the top 18, probably, right? Oh, that's
right around
around
Goldberg
6.
Brock. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think around Goldberg Brock, I would have had that. So I think that's the biggest whiff that we didn't include on here. So that'd be in there and bump the rest down. But this is a this catches pretty much all of them. Let us know your thoughts in the comments as you watch this back. What do we miss? Anything? And how do we do with this top, call it 5 to 10 of the biggest moments of all time? I think Taker had to be in that top 3. It's such a synonymous moment in Survivor Series history. So listen, enjoy the rest of Survivor Series week here. Again, we're doing all video previews for every match on the card. We're going to have a post-game wrap-up as well. And then Ryan mentioned earlier, check out Luke Jennings' Survivor Series 90 deep dive. That's in the audio feed on North-South Connection, all podcast applications. A lot of our stuff is simulcasting on both audio and video. Be sure to give us a like on YouTube or on TikTok as well. I want to thank everyone who watched along with us live and commented. They really added a lot of extra bonus. Peanut butter pie, Thanksgiving tradition. It's on the way, and one of the best weeks of the year really is Thanksgiving week.
For sure.
Keep it going, stay happy and healthy, and we'll be back with more North-South Connection live content and beyond through the rest of 2024 and into 2025. Thank you all.
Number 1, baby.
Grind you out.